All right. All right, so today's session is Power Apps and SharePoint Security, Gov Tenant Edition. Every time we have a workshop here, I always try to make sure which tenant type it's available in or not available in, or if there's some tricks. What I'm about to show you, everything is available in GCC High, GCC, and I haven't tested DoD, but all the things that I'm about to show you are pretty standard, and I'm fairly certain they're in DoD as well. So kind of a quick outline. All right, so the why, like why did I pick this session? Well, SharePoint is still a very common data source for a lot of Power Platform solutions, especially those that use Power Apps. What some people don't know is that there's actually a lot of different ways for users to access the content in SharePoint, and some of those aren't very obvious. So, that's kind of why I wanted to go over the topics that we're going to go over today. Some common scenarios that you run into with Power Platform projects and SharePoint is, you need users to only interact with data from Power Apps. You don't need them going to the list because you might have some conditions in Power App form, that hide or show depending on their choices, and you really don't need them going to the list and messing all that up. Or you need users to only see their data. Maybe it's maybe it's sensitive data, but not classified, not secret, nothing like that. But maybe it's employee performance data. And you don't want everybody being able to just read who made what bonus, who got rated what score. Some common reactions that I've heard over the years when I personally have brought up SharePoint security is, well, we'll just not send out the URL. It's fine. It'll be fine. It's not fine. Or people think security is painful, so they just want to avoid it. That's a common thing. People think that they can just apply filters in Power Apps. And that might work in some tenants, but not in all. And I'll show you a demo of what I'm talking about there. And then some people think you can just set the SharePoint view and then that works. But if you're familiar with SharePoint, you know that they can just easily change the view. So that's obviously not a solution either. So access methods that we are going to talk about today, and this is how users can access the data in SharePoint, is figuring out the SharePoint URL or getting a copy of it. They can actually access that SharePoint data through other Power Platform apps, the infamous Microsoft List app, and in some tenants, the browser dev tools. So for the first access method, we've got the SharePoint URL access. And the risk here is that the user gets hold of the URL and they can see everything. So what does that mean? I'm going to show you in this handy dandy site right here. I've got a SharePoint site. Let me hide this bar at the top, and I've got some fake, employee performance data in here, right here. And this data here is connected to this fake employee performance app. So in this scenario, people are supposed to go to the app, and that's how they're supposed to interact with the data. Maybe I'll have to get back to your I'll have to get back to your comment, Scott. Or if you want to explain more on that, I haven't heard of that before.
I'll talk about it later. Please keep going.
Okay. All right, so here's a fake employee performance app. It's connected to that list we just saw, and the stakeholders like, we just won't send the URL out. The developer's like, fine, that's okay. Well, in this in performance data, one way of people getting access to a URL is by a sharing link or sharing a document. So I'll click on this PDF. This is a PDF document. And a lot of times people just send out PDFs from a SharePoint document library or a list, and they won't think anything of it. But what they don't realize is now that user has this entire URL, they can literally just go in here and populate that on the back end, and they have access. It's that easy. They can start clicking around and see everything. So Documents are a really sneaky way of people getting URLs. The other way is a very common, there's a very common thing that people do. And I don't blame them. The button's there. I get it. I hate this button because it breaks permissions, but they click on this share button. They click on the share button or they use link to file in Power Automate, right? And they send something out. Well, even though this URL is not very direct, you know, maybe someone could guess the actual site if they were familiar, but a basic user couldn't. That's not, in this case, that's not the issue. What's the issue is that now if they go here and they go to location, oh, wait, what is this? Employee performance, let me go there. And now they're back at the site that you don't want them to go to, right? So a lot of different ways that users can get a hold of that URL. And once they do, if you don't have that data locked down, they can see everything you don't want them to see. They can interact with the data you don't want them to interact with. Another way that users can get that URL is through SharePoint search. So this is a SharePoint landing page. And I'm going to go here and I'm just going to type in the word bonus. And boom, these bonus documents are coming up because I have access to that site because there's no security on the actual items. And all I had to do was search. So that's another way for people to get hold of the URL, see your data when you don't want them to. All right, so how can you prevent or mitigate those incidents from happening, right? I'm going to go over this. First one is a very simple thing to do. It's a custom SharePoint permission just for Power App users. And what that is basically, I'll go here to this list. And I've already kind of set this up, but in SharePoint, oh, Scott, we're getting some feedback from your mic, if you don't mind muting real quick. Cool, thank you. Okay, so I'm in the SharePoint site, I'm at the root level. What you can do is you go to permission levels and you create a custom permission level in SharePoint. I've already got it created, but I'm gonna show you how. If you click on contribute, and then it shows a contribute permission level. If you go down to the bottom, you can copy this permission level and it's going to copy all of the settings and you can call this Power Apps Contribute. If you can spell better than I can. No, I spelled it right. Okay. And I'll just do two since I already have one created. Now, the difference is you want to deselect view application pages. What that is going to do is if someone does happen to get a hold of that URL, they're going to get to that page and they are actually going to see, show you here over a second, they'll see an access request. So I'm going to show you live what that looks like for this particular user I have over here. All right, so in this browser, I've got Jane Doe. So this is a dummy account in my sandbox or my dev environment. So I've got Jane Doe. Right now she can see everything. I don't have any special permissions locking her down. But what I'm going to do is go to fake performance data. I'm going to that list and I am going to apply that special permission group that we just created. Permissions for this list. I'm going to break permissions on this list because maybe I don't want to apply this feature across everything for this demo, just for this list for right now, but that's up to you. I know she's in the visitors group, so I'm going to remove her from the visitors group there. And then I'm going to grant permissions to that Power Apps users contribute because I added her in there and set it to Power Apps contribute. So now when I refresh, Jane no longer can access the site. Can she interact with it through Power Apps though? Because that is the need here. So if I go to apps, should have had this open already. Sorry, guys. That's why I say we're a casual group, so it makes room for stuff like this. And let's see. Oh, son of a gun. Be patient with me, you guys. Come on. Come on, internet. Let's go. Actually, just going to copy this, go back over there. Okay. So Jane can still see her information from that site, even though when she tries to go directly to that list, it'll say you don't have access. So it's just a way of hiding the SharePoint webpage, but still allowing people to interact with that data within Power Apps. Right? So that's the first method. The second method that I highly recommend, and I've had to deploy myself, oh, is creating unique SharePoint permissions for each item, because the problem with this approach, um, well, actually, I'm going to wait on that one. We'll see in the next couple of examples why there's still an issue with this approach, because even though we've blocked her from being able to see the SharePoint data from the SharePoint site, that doesn't mean that she won't be able to see it from other things. So um, I will save that next thing in a second. All right. Any questions on what we just saw so far? All right, I'm going to keep going. The next way that people can access your SharePoint data is through other apps. So, Jane has access to that list. She can pull it through Power Automate. And if she can pull it in Power Automate, she can guess the URL at that point. She can pull it in Power Apps, and also the infamous List app. And the reason why I say this app is infamous is because when it came out, there was definitely a whirlwind of trying to figure out how to prevent people from seeing SharePoint stuff outside of SharePoint. What happens here is, if say a user has interacted with the list app, I'm going to show you in my other account. If the user has interacted with the list app, if they've gone to this list and opened an item and viewed that item in the list app, it will now, that list will now show up in their list app to be able to interact with it, enter data, delete data for their stuff. It just shows up as another list. And the view, the SharePoint permissions that we created on the SharePoint side doesn't prevent them from seeing it here. They can still see it here. So that is definitely obviously another problem, right? And one of the ways that I've seen people kind of manage keeping that list hidden is to actually physically hide your SharePoint list and libraries. It does make development a little bit, you got to take some extra steps in development if you do that, but it just creates a layer of obscurity of your actual SharePoint list and library. And it's really easy to do too. So I've got a flow somewhere here. Yeah, so in this flow here, it's just send an HTTP request to SharePoint. And what it does is it triggers the hide list. And this is all that you have to do. It's not that complex. It's not lines of code. You just set the list to hidden equals true. And I'm going to run that right now. Let that run. All right, I'm going to go back to our list here. And when I refresh, that list should disappear from the navigation. That navigation is a little bit buggy, but it should disappear from the navigation. So now you no longer see it in navigation. If I go to site contents, you will no longer see it in site contents as well. And it's just another way of hiding that list. As long as the user, let me look at my reference slides real quick because I did some testing. Yeah, so if you hide that list, even if the user had visited that list and opened an item, hiding that list, doing that Power Automate flow will make it so that not, they can't see that list anymore. I did some testing. I did a Jane Doe, tried to see, okay, if she never visited a SharePoint list directly, can she see it in a list app? No. John Doe visited the SharePoint list, opened an item, and he could see it in a list app. But the moment I hid that list, they were no longer see it in a list app. So that's why I recommend, and I've used this and I've seen others recommend hiding that SharePoint list or library. Now, when you're developing though, it kind of gets to a pain in the butt because you got to store your list IDs or the library names. And, but it's security. If it's something, if it's very special, sensitive data like employee performance, it's worth hiding just to make sure, make things a little bit harder. The other thing that hiding that list does that is sometimes beneficial, sometimes not, is it makes it so that the information in search is no longer available, the content. um, I'm an admin, so I don't know if that'll change the results here, but if you hide a list or library, the content within it, it will no longer be available for SharePoint search. So that's something else to keep in mind. I mean, in our case, employee performance, that's a good thing. All right. The last thing I have for you guys is browser tools. Now, this is something that does not happen with every tenant, but it does with my dev tenant, and that's a commercial tenant. So it just depends, I think, on your tenant configuration. Somebody else here in the audience might know the answer to this, but what this is basically a way for people to say you've got your list hidden and um, say you've got your list hidden. You've got the special custom. We'll just use Jane's as an example. We've got her special. We've got the special custom. Can't view the SharePoint page permission set. We've got a filter in the Power App. Is there any other way for her to access data without going to that site? And the answer is yes. Again, it's not guaranteed for every single tenant, but what I'm going to show you here, and I just learned this the other day, so you guys bear with me on this one. Let's see. Oh, Mitch comments, often restricted through enterprise management of browsers in gov or larger enterprises, preventing browser tools. Yeah. Yep. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that, Mitch. Yeah, so this gets a little tricky, but basically I can go to network and I can add method. And I believe, let me look at my screenshot, my cheat sheet here. So it's going to be an invoke. And where is it? Let me do that and this. Ooh, all right. So I think it's one of these where you'll actually see a filter by employee. And that's the one. Here it is. Yep. All right. So again, if a user is savvy enough, they can go here, edit, resend, pull this up, and go to headers. And then this is where, see if I can make this smaller. You'll see the URL. And then I'm going to look for that name, that filter name, items filter here. So let me just double check over here. 5 teams. Yeah, keeping the 24 in there. Oh, Where did I go? Mm-mm-mm. So I'm just removing that filter that has her user account in it and keeping the 24 and to the select. All right, I'll do fetch or body and then raw text and I will send. And lo and behold, low code Rachel, who doesn't like coding, pro coding at all. I'm not a hacker. I'm not anything special or high tech. I've now got her information. I've got John Doe's information, and it's all pulling through JSON or I think that's JSON. I mean, but it's very easy to read information, right? And it's employee performance information that I'm not supposed to have access to. So again, I'm in a dev tenant, commercial tenant. This doesn't work in every tenant. So I'm not saying you need to freak out if you got SharePoint stuff or Power Apps stuff out there, but this is something that is possible. And again, I am not a high tech person. I could figure this out. So what do you do then? How do you prevent people from, intentionally diving in like that? That's where I know it sounds like a pain in the butt, but I promise you, I've run these flows at my last organization for employee performance data, and they were very solid flows. They did not break. But what you can do is you can have a Power Automate flow that breaks permission on a specific item. You can get that item, and in our SharePoint site, oh, I hid that list. Son of a gun. Let me unhide that list real quick. See, easy as that. Let that unhide. Yeah, yeah, really selling us on Dataverse for sure. I do like Dataverse. I'm actually working on a SharePoint to Dataverse workshop because of the things I'm learning there. There's a lot of fun there. Okay, so I can see that list now. Mm-mm-mm. If the navigation works, sometimes SharePoint navigation is not helpful. Don't know why. It's been like that forever. All right, so in this list, we have an employee column and a manager column, right? So what you can do is you can break permissions just for that item. And you can get the employee and the manager and then plug their information into a HTTPS request to SharePoint. This first one is just getting an ID, I think. So this one is how you break permissions. And I've got links to resources that have all this code too. If you guys want a sample of this, it'll be in the slides for sure. But all you got to do is put in this URI and the headers and everything, and that breaks permissions. And then you can say apply permissions. Now this is a little shorter. In order to get the employee ID number, this is not the employee's UPN. It's not an Azure held property. It's actually something you have to get from SharePoint. So just keep that in mind. But I've got another article that shows how to get that from your first pull. So that's something you can automate there. It doesn't have to be manual. But then this role ID is actual that custom permission set that we set before. So I'm going to go ahead and run this flow. Let me just double check what our permissions are on this list item right now. I think I cleared it last night, but just double check. And see. Yep. Oh yeah. Okay. So it's inheriting. Yep. All right. So right now this list item is inheriting from the top list from the list itself. We're going to go ahead and run this flow, and it's going to break permissions and then apply that new permission with Jane in it. It's actually going to break permissions, clear permissions, and then only apply that group. So, all right, go back over here, refresh. And then I go here. Now we can see only Jane Doe is listed, and if we go to advanced settings, it's just me and Jane Doe. And she's got the Power Apps contribute permission level. So this flow, like I said, thank you. This flow, like I said, is very reliable. I had it very nested because we had 6 levels in our organization of management of hierarchy. And I had this flow going through and applying permissions for the manager and every level in that management chain so that everybody within that same organization could see the employees' information and the employees of their employees' information. So, Mitch, you got a question?
Yeah, it's super interesting too, Rachel, by the way, like
Oh, thank
very
you.
in the weeds. But so I think like one, the if I remember right, somebody certainly correct me if I've got the number wrong. You can only break inheritance for up to 50,000 items on any given SharePoint list or document library. And I think Microsoft recommends not exceeding 5,000 for performance reasons. So there's like a solid 45,000 difference in squishiness of like what's supported. I mean,
Yeah.
50,000, that's a lot, right? So like
Yeah.
for something like this,
Yeah.
oh, there we go. I got him.
But
I
that's per
guess this
scope.
all. Oh, Brewster?
That's per scope. So like for a single site collection.
Yeah, but in this case, like everything's in that same list, right? So that list, we
Yeah.
couldn't exceed 50,000 if each item was going to have unique permissions, which is a lot. But
Yeah.
yeah, and
And
this.
oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
No,
Well,
go
and I
ahead.
guess, and this all comes back to like the underlying problem of our permissions. All we can really do is like restrict it to see your own or inherit, I guess, right? Like there's no like middle ground, which I guess is what we need here, where right where like managers need to be able to see some, but users can't see the other.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I wasn't in a large organization. I think everything gets so tricky when you're in large enterprise. From what I'm hearing and seeing and talking to people. The other thing with SharePoint and Power Platform is like I've always had this mind. If you're using a SharePoint list, we already have to deal with delegation issues. So we're already doing that archiving and we're already kind of doing the collecting and all of that, or separating things out into different lists to deal with that. So another limit is like in a Power Platform SharePoint world, another limit is like, okay, how are we gonna deal with this one? I didn't have to deal with that 50,000 items limit because again, we only had 200 people, so we really didn't have to deal with that. But it is really good to know that. I had no clue that there was a limit on how many items you could do that with. Another reason for Dataverse. So
A little trick is to create folders and hide them. And you can put all of your items in different folders and have the permissions on those folders. So you have fewer breaks.
Yeah. I guess you could probably do that at like the manager level, right? So if you have 7 direct reports, that's only 1 break.
Yeah.
For the 7.
Yeah.
That's tricky though. I mean, it's definitely a lot to set up.
Yeah. No, I mean, always got to deal with workarounds. Oh, JD said you can use document sets. Yep. Good old document sets.
Okay.
All right. So, with that, closing out here, again, if you got SharePoint URLs, you can use the custom SharePoint permission setting to prevent viewing content if someone does happen to get a handle the URL. You can hide lists and libraries to prevent them from seeing it in the apps. And you can also create unique permissions to prevent someone from maliciously going in or accidentally going in and seeing it through the browser dev tools. So that's going to close out today's session. I do have all the resources I used on the ways to do this stuff so you guys can try it out at home. And I'm going to stop recording and open the floor up. Let me see. All right.